Let's go in order. David's been waiting for about a half hour. David, are you with us?
Yeah, I am. Thank you for taking the call.
Thanks for calling. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I was going to talk about the idea of a creator or whatever, but you guys have been talking about death and all this death stuff. So I just had a question for you guys. So say when it's all over and it's done, and uh, you know we're resurrected, or we come back and you find out there is a God. Are you going to be mad at that God?
I think it would depend on the way he answers some of my questions. Because if I were to die and all of a sudden I find myself somewhere and I'm face to face with a God, uh, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the Christian God. So I'd probably first start with, what do I call you? And then I'll probably go into some questions about its nature and purpose and other things. And then I would probably reserve any emotions for when I have those answers.
But if there's trillions and trillions of people that, or billions, whatever number you want to give, I mean, do you think you're going to have that one-on-one with this creator?
I think if he cares to give me a one-on-one, I would have it.
Okay, but if he doesn't or whatever, and you find out that, would you be mad at this God is my question.
At that point, I would only have the fact that he didn't have time for me to be my source of anger. Like I said, just because he doesn't talk to me doesn't mean I'm going to automatically assume a bunch of things about him. It would just be a big question mark. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. And so say you are damned to hell forever or whatever. I mean, would that be a point of contention?
Okay, wait a minute. Let me rephrase the question. All right. If a supernatural being was awaiting me after I died, took me and threw me into fire, would that be a point of contention for me? Is that the question?
Yes.
I would be somewhat put out. Yes, I would.
That's a way to put it. Yeah.
I found myself.
I'll play along. I will absolutely play along. Sure. I find that to be a point of contention, that I'm being tortured forever for something that I have no idea that I did or didn't do. For all I know, I could be burning because I didn't own a ferret and it's a ferret God that I pissed off. Like, I don't know. Like, okay, fine.
Like
I'm being tortured.
And all of a sudden I realize I am hurtling now toward the big lake of fire, and I'm going to experience unimaginable pain for all eternity. I might, yes, find a microsecond of eye contact with said deity, and I would scream, "How rude!" Yes,
I know, right?
I would be a point of contention for me, I think. Yes.
I'd be asking other people on the way down. I'd be asking, what are you here for? I don't know. Like, David, here's the thing. Okay, here's the point I was getting to earlier. I have zero information on a God. I have lots of religions telling me different things about God and no way to determine whether any of them are right or wrong. I know they can't all be right, but I know that they all can be wrong. I have no information about this God. So if I suddenly die, if I'm in that state, and I'm in that state honestly, and I can tell you, I am honestly in a state where I don't legitimately believe a God exists, and I don't have a good reason to believe a God exists. If I die, then I'm suddenly being tortured without word. I'm going to be very confused, and sure, I'll be angry, but I'll still be very confused. I won't know why I'm there. Did I piss off Allah? Did I piss off Yahweh? Did I piss off Xenu? Did I piss off the ferret God? I don't know. And if this God's not going to talk to me, there's nothing I can really do about that. And as Seth said, that's pretty fucking rude.
Well, that's a great point. You brought up a great point. So my follow-up question would be, you came, using your reason and your logic, you came to the conclusion that you don't believe in a God. Couldn't you come to the same reason and logic to believe in a God? Like it wasn't some natural process that allowed you to come to the conclusion that you don't believe in a creator, right? I mean, you've used your mind, your faculties, your thought process.
Hang on, David.
Go ahead.
The phrasing of your question gives me pause, or the phrasing of your statement. Yeah. I didn't choose to be an atheist. I didn't wake up one day and say, today I'm going to not believe in God. I simply acknowledged that belief was not there. I delved into the religion that I'd come out of, I finally started asking the hard questions, realized it was bullshit. Then I looked at other religions and realized they were bullshit, man made. And so I just admitted what I already innately, what had happened within my own mind and heart. So I didn't say, I choose to be an atheist. I just admitted what had happened automatically and organically inside. So the process for believing in a God would be what? I see overwhelming evidence to believe, and then I would simply have to admit that out loud. But it's not a choice.
So what is evidence to you then? What is sufficient evidence for you to be convinced?
Well, the God that would want me to believe in him, her, or it would already know exactly what it would take to convince me. Like, I don't even have to answer
Well, I
that
mean, you
question.
should have some
We,
standards, right? Like
sure. I
sorry, go
mean, we
ahead.
can
So
get into evidentiary standards. We can get into the scientific method. Can we see God tested and retested? Can we see the results of God claims? You know, all these things that are happening within the physical world without the cheat of the supernatural or the metaphysical, right? That sort of get out of reality free card that religions like to play. If we take that off the table and say, okay, show me, demonstrate, test, retest, to show me the results over and over again, I would go down that road. But the larger question is, if there is a deity and he knows everything and can do everything, then he already knows exactly what it would take to demonstrate and prove himself to me. So the pressure's off me and it's all on God.
yeah, and
But you
I
do
think David
have
good. David, I think it just I want to give my 2 cents there on what would convince me. As Seth said, evidence, and I think good evidence is something that can be demonstrated, repeated, shared with others, measured, and good evidence is evidence that leads to one or very, very few conclusions, not evidence that can lead to multiple conclusions. So something along those lines would definitely help me along to believing that a deity exists.
well, let me ask you this. Do you believe your mother is your mother? Like your biological
Yes.
mother? Do you believe she's your mother? Why is that?
Yes.
Why is
Because
that?
I have, I'm answering. I have photographic evidence. I have testimony. I can do DNA tests. I can empirically, using reason and science, look at the evidence and say, yeah, she's my mother because we have mitochondrial DNA. So that's what is used in court cases to link me to my female ancestors. So we just have to do a lab test and go, yep, the DNA lines up. Eric is Pamela's
I
But
offspring.
would
at this
think
point, you haven't done that
emerging
test,
from
have
her
you?
vagina would be, that's also going to be probably part of my process, I think.
Yeah,
Just a realization
yeah,
that that did happen. Yeah, 57
yeah.
years
But
ago.
but but you but you have not done that test, right? You've not tested your mitochondria to confirm that your biological mother is
No, I
your
don't. I
mother.
don't. I don't. No, I don't see a need to, but I can if I want to. She died a year ago, though, so it might be a little hard at this point. But I could if I wanted to.
I'm sorry for that. But the point I'm trying to make is that you're just taking it on whim and faith that your mother and your
No,
father are your biological parents, right?
no,
No?
it's not.
What?
It's not. No,
Did you do
no,
a
David,
genetic
David,
screening
David,
test?
David.
Wait,
It's not a
one at
whim
a
and
time. David, hang
yeah,
on.
David. It's not a whim and faith. I have lots of other evidence, and if I were to have doubt, if the evidence wasn't lining up, which has happened many times with certain children, things don't line up. Like, oh, I have blue eyes and my parents have brown eyes. That shouldn't happen. Or I don't look anything like my parents, or even my skin color is different, or all kinds of reasons where children can look and go, wait a minute, the evidence isn't lining up. I'm going to go further and do further investigation and go into the genetics and science. And people have done that. Okay. I don't see a reason to do that because, first of all, if I'm wrong, it's not a big deal. She's gone. And I don't really care anymore. But secondly, I have plenty of evidence that already strongly indicates to me that I am Pamela's offspring because I look like her. We have the same skin color. All the genetics line up. I have my dad here still. That gives me the testimony. I have my older brothers. I have photographs. I have everything I need. It's not a women of faith. I got good evidence for it. And if for
But
some
you
reason that
also,
evidence wasn't, if that for some reason that evidence wasn't good enough, I can rely on even stronger evidence like genetic testing.
I think
Go ahead,
we
Seth.
also have to throw in the legal requirements, right? Because at the moment there are documents that are signed. There was a birth certificate. There were
Hmm.
fingerprints of of everybody taken and the footprints or whatever they do. I mean, this is not just a faith claim. There are
Yeah.
processes in place. And Eric's right. Let's say that we didn't do a direct DNA test. Well, that's easily accomplished. So, the idea that we relate that to a God claim, how do I know there's a God? How do I know there's my parent or it is my parent? I think are apples and oranges here.
So, David, if your contention there is why are we not exercising the same standards of evidence or the same investigatory rigor with the parent claim versus the God claim? First of all, the parent claim isn't worldview shattering. If it turns out that my mother was not actually my biological mother, it doesn't shatter my worldview. It doesn't mess up my logical system. It's just, oh, I had a false piece of information. And the evidence didn't point to it, so I couldn't have found it, or I wouldn't have suspected it to begin with. It doesn't shatter my worldview. Whereas if I do it with a God, if I make logical leaps to get to a God conclusion and I'm wrong, it's worldview shattering. My entire process was messed up. So that's why we have such a difference there.
Looks like we lost his call. By the way, I'd like to start a new podcast and call it Investigatory Rigor. I just like the way that came out of your mouth.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tonight it's 7. Investigatory rigor, whatever. There's the first problem. I would already screw up the consonants.
I
know. I don't know.
For a moment there, I thought I messed up saying it. Investigatory.
It was my fault.
Yeah.
It was user error. But how do you know that there isn't? I'm still back at the first part of his call. What if you wake up? What if, which to me is not a belief statement. There's the subtext of that. There's a little bit of threat in there. What happens if you were wrong?
Yeah.
What happens if there are consequences that result in your doom and damnation? It's loaded just a little bit. But one of the first questions is, well, if the first time I freaking get proof of it is after I've kicked off, right? After this life is over is the first chance I really get to know for sure. I think that's just bullshit. That would be one of my first questions. Why here? Why now? Where you been?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And this was obviously a repackaged Pascal's wager. It's basically getting to, well, if this happens and then it's too late, why are you taking this route? And it's like, like I said, I can the ferret God could be the one true God, and the fact that I don't own a ferret at all in my life, or I've never taken care of ferrets, might mean that I go to hell. And if that God's not going to talk to me and clearly communicate that criteria to me, then there's nothing I can do. Sure, I can be pissed off about that. I can have contention about that, but there's nothing I can do about it. And
apparently I scarred some people in the chat when I was doing the emerging from the womb thing. That little pantomime apparently has ruined some people, and I want to apologize for that. Sorry.
I was going to say this is where the Christian would ask, well, were you there? And I could say, yes, I was there.
Like, here's one of my questions for God is, why, if I'm a baby, why don't I have memories that I can use until I'm freaking 5 years old or 4, right? What happened back then? What was I doing as I explore the world? Why is that stuff that must still be there in my gray matter, lodged in my memory somewhere in a place I cannot access? Why can't I access it? Why did my life start at, I don't know, I think my first memory is I'm 4, maybe 5. I can kind of visualize the house I lived in and kind of see the dog we had. What's that about? I have questions about my emergence into this world. I don't know. Do you have any final thoughts, Eric, before we call it a show today?
I guess my last one is for David. If you were trying to do Pascal's wager on us, I can easily posit any number of gods that will punish you for believing without good reason. Maybe there's a God who is more secure in his godhood than the Christian God. And he doesn't care whether you believe or not. He just cares that you are reaching your conclusions honestly. This God can understand that you're working with incomplete evidence. He can understand that the human brain isn't perfect and it's fallible and it can make mistakes in reasoning. And he really just cares about whether or not you're holding your conclusions honestly, especially in the face of silly threats from religions. Maybe he blesses those people and he punishes those who don't fit that criteria. I can easily posit such a God. And now Pascal's wagers flipped right back around on you, David. Like, what if you're being irrational and you're making your decisions out of fear and out of a response to threats from religion, and the one true God really doesn't like that, and you're damning yourself for doing that?
Now, what if you're
We
wrong?
can't. What if you're wrong? Yeah. So
Or what if you're
yeah,
wrong
just
about Allah? What if you're wrong about Krishna?
yeah.
You know,
And my final answer to that would be, if that is such a God, if such a God will punish me for coming to my conclusions honestly, and he disagrees with those conclusions, but I came to them honestly, and he wants to punish me for that, then I don't care to know that God. That God's an asshole, and he can do whatever he wants to me. I'll be powerless, whatever, but I will not lower myself to worshiping such a being.
why are you so angry? You just want to sin.
I'm just
just
rageful.
want
Yeah.
My friend, it's always good to be able to hang out. We had some good calls today,
Absolutely.
and a couple of others. But
Yeah, Seth.
it's interesting to navigate this journey. I don't know. I mean, it's easy for me to be smug on the other side sometimes, but I
It
look at
is.
myself when I was a believer and I was a closed system. I felt kind of superior and insecure at the same time. My world was about this big. I just didn't, I don't know. But what was it, Vicky? I was talking about discomfort. It was when I was made uncomfortable, when I allowed myself to feel discomfort and embrace it, that things started to open up for me. And I like to say that I said this in an interview a few weeks ago that we're not here on this earth to keep other people comfortable. Right? I think we need to build bridges wherever we can. But, a lot of times being uncomfortable is the right response. It opens things up. It causes us to question where we are. It
Hmm.
is a motivator. It's a starting block to a necessary and important journey, often really critical moral journeys. And so, let's be uncomfortable. Let's maybe go out and make others uncomfortable
Absolutely.
and kind of see what happens. My friend, it's an honor to be able to co host the show with you. Let's try to do it
Yeah.
again. I'll have my people
Absolutely,
call
Seth.
your people. We'll do the thing. That sound good?
Sounds excellent.
Hey, if you liked that clip, you'd love the whole thing. Hit like, subscribe,
Yes.
leave a comment, patreon.com/calltheline. That one sucked. Use it.